What do we mean when we say something is true? It seems like a simple question, right? But honestly, it is one of the most complex ideas humans have ever grappled with. Truth is the foundation of our reality. It guides our decisions, builds our societies, and shapes our understanding of the universe. When we agree on what is true, we can build bridges, cure diseases, and even explore the stars. But when we disagree, it can lead to confusion and conflict. The very concept of truth is not a single solid thing. Instead, it is a big, fascinating idea with many different facets. It is a cornerstone of everything we think we know. Think of truth as the ultimate standard for what is real. It is the quality of being in accordance with fact or reality. If I say the sky is blue, you can look up and confirm it for yourself. That statement aligns with your observation of the world. Therefore, you consider it true. This type of truth feels straightforward and reliable. It is based on evidence we can gather with our own senses. But not all truths are so easy to check. Some truths are about our feelings, our beliefs, or our shared cultural understandings. These are just as important to our lives, but they work in a very different way. The search for truth has driven human progress for thousands of years. Early philosophers in ancient Greece spent their lives debating its nature. Scientists in the Enlightenment developed new methods to test and verify their ideas about the world. Every great discovery, every invention, every step forward in our civilization has been a step towards a clearer understanding of what is true. It is a journey that requires curiosity, skepticism, and a willingness to change our minds when new evidence comes along. The pursuit of truth is not just an academic exercise, it is a fundamental human activity. It is how we make sense of our place in the cosmos. So we can see that truth is not just one thing, it is a spectrum. On one end, we have objective truths that are the same for everyone, everywhere. On the other end, we have subjective truths that are personal and unique to each individual. And in the middle, we have truths that are based on agreement within a community or culture. Understanding these different kinds of truth is the first step towards navigating our complex world. It helps us figure out what to believe and why we believe it. It empowers us to ask better questions and to think more critically about the information we receive every single day. Let's explore two main types of truth. The first is scientific truth. This is an objective truth. It is based on observable, repeatable evidence. Imagine you have a wooden block sitting on a table. If you push it, it will move. That is a scientific truth. It does not matter who you are. It does not matter what you believe. It does not even matter what language you speak. If you apply a force to the block, it will accelerate in the direction of that force. This is a fundamental law of physics. We can measure the force, the mass of the block, and the resulting acceleration. Anyone following the same procedure will get the same result. This is the beauty of the scientific method. It is a process designed to remove personal bias and opinion. The truth of a scientific claim does not depend on the authority of the person making it. A student in a high school lab can demonstrate Newton's laws just as effectively as a Nobel laureate. The truth is found in the experiment itself, in the data, the measurements, and the verifiable outcome. This process of independent verification is what gives scientific knowledge its power. It builds a shared understanding of the physical world that is reliable and consistent. It is a truth that stands on its own, supported by a foundation of evidence. Now, let's consider another type of truth, subjective or authority-based truth. This kind of truth depends heavily on who is speaking. Think about a courtroom. A witness takes the stand and swears to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. The jury listens to their testimony. The witness describes what they saw or heard. The jury's belief in that testimony often depends on the witness's credibility. Do they seem trustworthy? Do they have a reason to lie? The judge, wearing robes and sitting in an elevated position, is a figure of authority. Their rulings on matters of law are accepted as true within the context of the court. In this setting, the truth is not something you can test with an experiment. It is constructed through stories, arguments, and trust in authority. The experience and reputation of the speaker matter immensely. A seasoned detective's testimony might be given more weight than that of a bystander with a history of dishonesty. This does not mean the truth is arbitrary, but its validation process is social and psychological, not physical. It relies on our shared systems of justice and our ability to judge the character of others. It is a truth built on human relationships and established authority, which is very different from pushing a block on a table. In our modern world, we hear a lot about fact-checking. It sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? We have a problem with misinformation, so let's hire people to check the facts. But this raises an important question. What is the difference between a fact and a truth? A fact is a piece of information that can be verified as accurate. For example, it is a fact that today's date is June 9th, 2025. It's a fact that water is composed of hydrogen and oxygen atoms. These are discrete, verifiable data points. They are the building blocks we use to construct a larger understanding of the world. But facts alone are not the whole story. Truth is the broader context in which facts are placed. It is the narrative we build from those facts. Two people can use the exact same set of facts to arrive at very different truths. Imagine a report that states, Factory A released 10 tons of a chemical into the river last year. That is a fact. One person might use this fact to argue the truth that Factory A is a dangerous polluter that must be shut down. Another person might use the same fact, add another fact that this level is within legal safety limits, and argue the truth that Factory A is a responsible company operating within the law. Both are using verified facts, but they are presenting different truths. This is where fact-checking can become a tool for control. When a fact-checker labels a statement as false or misleading, they are often not just checking a discrete fact. They are making a judgment about the larger narrative, the truth, being presented. They are deciding which context is the correct one. This can be used to silence ideas that challenge a particular worldview or agenda. By framing the debate around a narrow set of pre-approved facts, it becomes possible to control the conclusions that people are allowed to draw. It can give the illusion of objectivity while subtly shaping the boundaries of acceptable thought. Therefore, we must be careful. While checking facts is important, it is not a substitute for critical thinking. A statement can be full of accurate facts and still be profoundly misleading. Conversely, a statement that gets a minor fact wrong might still be pointing towards a larger, more important truth. We need to ask ourselves not just is this fact correct, but also, what is the bigger story being told here? What facts were left out? Who benefits from me believing this particular version of the truth? The real challenge is not just collecting facts, but learning how to assemble them into a meaningful and honest picture of reality. You have probably heard the phrase, trust the science a lot lately. It's often used to end a debate or to signal that a conclusion is final and really shouldn't be questioned. However, this phrase is actually deeply unscientific. Science is not a belief system. It's not an institution that demands your trust. Science is a process, a method of inquiry. It's a way of asking questions, testing hypotheses, and honestly, constantly challenging our own assumptions. The very heart of the scientific process is skepticism. It's about saying, that's an interesting idea. Now, let's try to prove it wrong. When someone tells you to trust the science, they're often confusing the process of science with the authority of scientists or scientific institutions. In effect, they're saying, trust us, the experts. But science has made its greatest leaps forward when individuals have dared to question the established experts. Galileo questioned the Church's view of the cosmos. Einstein questioned Newton's laws of physics. True science welcomes questions. It thrives on debate and the rigorous testing of ideas. To demand blind trust is to turn science into a dogma, which is, honestly, the exact opposite of what it should be. Furthermore, the word science can be co-opted by powerful groups to promote their own agendas. For example, a corporation might fund a study that, surprise, finds its product to be perfectly safe. They can then publish this study in a scientific-looking journal and promote it with a press release that says, "Science shows our product is safe." This isn't science, it's marketing disguised as science. They're borrowing the credibility of the scientific method to lend authority to a predetermined conclusion. They're hoping you'll see the word science and just stop asking questions. This is a powerful way to shape public opinion and policy. So, instead of trust the science, a more scientific approach would be to test the science. This means looking at the evidence for ourselves. It means asking questions like, who funded this study? What was the methodology? Have the results been replicated by other independent researchers? Do the conclusions logically follow from the data? This is what it means to engage with science. It's not about memorizing a list of facts handed down from on high. It's about participating in the process of discovery and verification. It's about being an active, critical thinker, not a passive believer. Throughout history, the power to define truth has been closely linked to the power to control society. For centuries, religious institutions were the primary arbiters of what was considered true. They controlled the books, the schools, and the public discourse. To question the established religious doctrine was not just a theological error, it was a challenge to the entire social and political order. Heresy was punished severely because it threatened the foundation of their authority. The truth was what the church said it was, and this knowledge was used to maintain a specific structure of power. In later centuries, this power shifted. With the rise of industrial capitalism, social class and wealth became major factors in who could define truth. The owners of newspapers and later television stations had immense power to shape public perception. They could decide which stories were told and how they were framed. They could promote politicians who served their interests and discredit those who did not. The truth presented to the public was often the one that best served the economic interests of the media owners. This is a form of sponsored knowledge where the information we receive is filtered through the lens of those who have the money to broadcast it. Today, this dynamic has become even more complex. We're in an age of what we might call sponsored knowledge. Corporations, governments, and special interest groups spend vast sums of money to fund research and public relations campaigns designed to create a specific version of the truth. This isn't always as simple as direct bribery. It can be subtle. For example, a pharmaceutical company might fund dozens of studies on a new drug. They may only publish the ones that show positive results, while the studies showing negative side effects are quietly shelved. This creates a public record that looks overwhelmingly positive even if it's not the whole truth. This presents a huge challenge for all of us. When we read a news article or see a scientific report, we must now ask a critical question: who paid for this? Understanding the source of funding is crucial to evaluating the credibility of the information. Is the research funded by an independent body or by a group with a vested interest in a particular outcome? Is the media outlet known for its journalistic integrity, or does it have a clear political or corporate agenda? Recognizing that knowledge can be sponsored is not about becoming a cynic. It's about becoming a savvy consumer of information in a world where truth is often for sale. We've seen that truth is not a simple single thing. It's a complex landscape with different territories. There are objective, scientific truths proven through repeatable experiments. There are subjective truths based on authority and personal experience. We've also seen how facts can be selected and framed to build different truths, and how powerful interests can sponsor knowledge to promote their agendas. This can all feel a bit overwhelming. If truth is so complicated and so easily manipulated, how can we know what to believe? Where do we find solid ground? The answer is not to give up on truth. The answer is to become better explorers of this landscape. It requires us to develop a new kind of literacy. It means accepting that uncertainty is a part of the process. A healthy mind is not one that has all the answers, but one that knows how to ask the right questions. We must learn to be comfortable with nuance and to resist the temptation of easy, black and white answers. The world is rarely that simple. Finding the truth is not a destination we arrive at, but a process we must continually engage in. It requires effort, patience, and a good dose of humility. We can start by diversifying our sources of information. Instead of getting all our news from one place, we can read sources from different perspectives. We can learn to distinguish between the process of science and the pronouncements of authority. We can practice asking who funded this and who benefits from this narrative. We can learn to identify when facts are being used to support a broader, unstated truth. Most importantly, we can have conversations with people who see the world differently. By listening to their perspectives, we can challenge our own assumptions and see the blind spots in our own thinking. Ultimately, the responsibility for deciding what is real rests with each of us. In a world saturated with information, our most important tool is our own critical mind. We can't outsource the job of thinking. So, I leave you with a few questions to ponder. How do you decide what is true in your own life? What is the difference between a healthy skepticism and a destructive cynicism? And in an age where anyone can broadcast their ideas to the world, what are our shared responsibilities for seeking and speaking the truth? The answers will shape the future we build together.